Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Irish Illustrated Insider. I'm Tim Priester from Irish Illustrated. We're joined by John Bryce of the Football Scoop and Irish Illustrated, Pete Sampson of The Athletic. Tim O'Malley's in Atlanta somewhere. We are searching for him. We hope to find him before our little broadcast here is complete. But hey, Notre Dame at Georgia Tech this weekend in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. It looks like we might be getting Tim O'Malley joining us here. And the big question, we talked to Marcus Freeman today, but the big question is the health of the quarterback for Georgia Tech, probably more than the health of the Notre Dame guys. Hi, Tim O'Malley.
How are you doing?
Good. Yeah, I asked Marcus Freeman about Zach Pyron, who's the backup to Haynes King. They're similar, they're built similarly, they do run similarly. I doubt very much whether Zach Pyron's going to throw the football as effectively as Haynes King has this year. King threw 16 interceptions last year. He has just one and 215 passes, I believe, or maybe that's the defense. They only have one interception on defense too. But guys, what do you make of this? The line certainly moved significantly when it was fully discovered that Haynes King has a bad right, which is his throwing shoulder.
Well, Tim, I think as you mentioned, maybe they saw Riley Leonard trying to throw with a bad left shoulder because Haynes King with a bad right throwing shoulder changes this dramatically. Um, one sack allowed by that offensive line, and what really is an offensive line driven program. Brent Key is a former offensive lineman, and you know, I think in the summer you detailed that Haynes King he used to make ample mistakes over the course of games.
16
Yeah,
interceptions. I mean,
that's a
that's
lot these days. So he's toned it down. If he's not out there, it's a totally different world for their offense.
It feels to me a little bit like the Notre Dame at Virginia game from a few years ago when Brennan Armstrong was like, "Is he going to play? Is he not going to play?"
mm,
And then when we heard, or I heard on the airport jetway from the
Yes,
mom of UVA's punter that in fact Brennan Armstrong was absolutely out, and the entire week had been a ruse. It's like, well, Notre Dame by name the score. I think Georgia Tech's a little bit better than Virginia overall. But this, I, if they don't have Haynes King, I just don't see how they have a whole lot of an offense.
Yeah, I don't think Georgia Tech has any shot whatsoever if Haynes King can't go. And the fact that it seems to be this much in debate and that the line has shifted so significantly by Vegas odds makers lets you know that even if King can go, I don't think there's much faith that he's going to be remotely at full capacity or full capability. And when you talk to people around the Notre Dame program, I don't think they mind if he tries to go out there and play and he's gimped up. So I think that Notre Dame feels good about the matchup. A big part of the Georgia Tech offense is its screen offense. Notre Dame has a good defense that reacts well to the screen
they are
game and
great
plays
against
with great
inside
discipline.
screens, John. John, that's a great point. They are awesome against bubble and rocket screens, and those rocket screens probably a word from 25 years ago, but they're fantastic at that.
Yeah. So
you're talking about the Notre Dame defense, right, Tim?
Yes, yeah, they're
Okay,
fantastic at that at screen defense.
I
yeah,
was going to say that Georgia Tech, not that Notre Dame has a great screen game, but
No, the defense.
But Georgia Tech's defense was not good at all against the screen game when they were at Syracuse. So, a lot at play here. I guess the thing that spooked me the other day when I started looking at, okay, you know, uh, because Brent Key took over a program that was 10 and 28, and he is 16 and 12 and went 4 and 4 the balance of the 2022 season when he took over. They were a 3 touchdown underdog at Pittsburgh and they won. And, then you start looking at it and they've been the underdog in 16 of the games that he's coached. They've won 9 of those games outright. And then against the spread as an underdog, they're 12 and 4. So, um, but all of that said, that was with Haynes King as their quarterback. And if he's not, it's just that I've seen Zach Pyron play a little bit. He threw 82 passes 2 years ago. He's another big quarterback and they are going to, Marcus Freeman said it, they will still run predominantly the same offense with him, but their passing game I can't see how it could possibly be as adept as it was with King, having gone from 16 turnovers in 13 games last year to one through 7 games this year. That's a remarkable reduction, and that's good stuff. Guys, what else are you looking at in this game? And then we also, of course, had an opportunity to speak with Marcus Freeman for a little bit. There were only a handful of us on there, but um, just what do you take out of this matchup with Georgia Tech, Pete?
Well, I'm how much they play man defense is something I wanted to work into
Right.
my preview tomorrow. Like Notre Dame is number 2 in the country in percentage of man-to-man defensive schemes they roll out with Al Golden, and some of that, a lot of it, all of it, hinges on your cornerbacks holding up. Now you don't have Benjamin Morrison, so are you as you're willing to stick your chest out quite as far with Leonard Moore and Christian Gray? I think that they probably will and see what happens because I don't think. I mean, even if Haynes King is the quarterback, I would not want to throw on Notre Dame man to man. If it's Zach Pyron, just forget it. So I that's more of maybe something I want to see over the long haul. But like, does the defense change a little bit? Whose field, whose boundary? Marcus was really coy about that today, in terms of who plays where. But frankly, I don't know if it matters a whole lot. But can they keep being as aggressive and clutchy and grabby at corner as they have been through 6 games? I don't know. I'm curious to sort of see that.
Tim, what do you think about all the man that Notre Dame plays when you're matching up against Malik Rutherford and you're matching up against Eric Singleton Jr. You are also matching up against Jamal Haynes, the running back who they throw the football to a lot. They use the width of the field. You have any concerns about that? With
No, I don't because well, I mean, first of all, Rutherford's going to be involved a lot with Jordan Clark. When you're the slot receiver, you get a lot of Jordan Clark. I I mean, this is a 0% disparage to Benjamin Morrison, who's a better corner now than Leonard Moore. But I think Leonard Moore and Christian Gray hold up great when healthy. I, I keep saying into the USC game, but they're better than those three. There's better than that situation as well. They're not playing Texas and Alabama. I think it was John Bryce that mentioned they're going to hold up. This was with Benjamin Morrison, but they can hold up against almost anybody man to man. I think they'll do a great job. Now, would they do better with Benjamin Morrison? Sure, Benjamin Morrison would be better than Leonard Moore in this, but I think Leonard Moore will have a good day. And there's a lot of Jordan Clark involved here in the slot too. It's not. I know Singleton and Rutherford. They look like carbon copies, as our insider said, Garrett Chapman at Georgia Tech. But I mean, one guy operates a lot out of the slot, and that's Jordan Clark's domain right now.
Yeah, and I think that in addition to what we talk about with Moore and Gray is the sum of Notre Dame's defensive parts. And again, we've seen some new wrinkles. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. We know that Al Golden is still deploying various elements of his defense that he can do. We've seen him utilize the blitz with Xavier Watts off the edge, where he nearly got to the quarterback and forced a disrupted play where there was a quarterback pressure maybe from Burnham and a PBU from KVA. So, yeah, I know we're talking about playing this first game without Ben Morrison, but this is a defense that has had to adjust for several weeks in a row without playing with a significant contributor. And again, there's belief in the program that Ben Morrison is going to kickstart a stretch of probably 3 years in a row of having a top 50 draft pick at the cornerback position, from Ben Morrison to Christian Gray to Leonard Moore. There's an extreme optimism there. And Leonard Moore, for what he lacks in experience, has a little bit longer arms and a little bit bigger frame and physical skills than Ben Morrison. So yes, he's a true freshman getting his third most extensive action this weekend and his second career start. But I like the matchup for Notre Dame. I like Notre Dame's defensive discipline. That doesn't mean they'll play every play perfectly, but I think they know to watch for the counter action in Georgia Tech's offense, and they know to watch for the screen. And then I just think that those guys will hold up well enough in coverage, and especially against the Haynes King, if he plays, who's got a dinged up arm, and you don't know how effectively he can stretch the field or how accurately he can stretch the field.
If Leonard Moore can play to the level that he did in his first start against Louisville, he's certainly capable of doing that against Georgia Tech. And I have the utmost respect for Rutherford and Singleton because they're a pain. They are quick and Again, they widen the field for a defense and makes it tough. But can you imagine what Zach Pyron is going through this week, looking at Notre Dame defensive film and trying to understand what Al Golden's going to call next? I mean, that would be frightening, I would think, for a relatively inexperienced quarterback that Pyron is.
Oh yeah, I don't think he has a chance against this defense after not essentially not playing meaningful football for about two full years.
Yeah,
He had two
yeah.
starts total, three meaningful games. Notre Dame has made decent quarterbacks look below average, and below average quarterbacks look like they should choose a different sport. I don't know how this one plays for Pyron at all.
On the flip side, man, there's some. It's kind of similar to Notre Dame playing Stanford. Like they have good run defense numbers, but Hampton had a 71-yard run against them last week. There's a couple guys that they have a nickelback, Omar Daniels, number 21, that was chasing the entire damn afternoon against Syracuse. And as good of a football player as the linebacker Kyle Eford is, he has difficulty against the pass. So I think, once again, this is a game that Riley Leonard should go into with a lot of confidence that he can have success throwing the football against.
I think he's going to for a while, Tim. I think Riley Leonard has hit his stride here. And I bring this up every time I talk about Notre Dame's offense hitting its stride, but it's true. They're just not facing a defense better than their offense until they qualify for the playoff. It's Texas A&M was a defense better than their offense 100% in game number one. Probably still would be a defense better than their offense right now, but it's just not a litany of tough, rugged defenses that their quality. Like Miami's a better defense than you think. Northern Illinois is a better defense than you think. These Louisville has some players and they're able to really slow down Riley Leonard in that offense for a while. But it is, I think, confident Riley Leonard in this offense has found itself, and they will be able to score points on Georgia Tech.
And that was a damn near broken North Carolina team last week that honestly was playing for so much more than just that game,
Yeah,
and continuing questions to swirl around the future of Mac Brown with a growing expectation he'll retire at season's end, and yet and it's an offense that has replaced so much, but they put 34 up on the Jackets and should have had that game in overtime with a chance to win. And I couldn't agree more with your point, Tio. I just think that the best part of the Georgia Tech team, especially with Haynes King questionable, is the Georgia Tech offensive line. And it had 130 career starts together or something coming into the season. They're up around 160 or so career starts now. They're a good offensive line. A lot of respect for Jeep Wade and Buster Faulkner running the show on that side of the ball for the Jackets. But I just think that their best unit matches up against Notre Dame's overall best unit, which is its defense. And then I like what Notre Dame is doing and growing offensively.
We don't know exactly what the situation is with kicker Mitch Jeter. He's listed as questionable. When we talked to Marty Biaggi the other day, he said he was still hopeful that Jeter would be available. I asked Marcus Freeman about his kickers, Zach Yoakum and Marcel Diomedes. And well, I asked about Yoakum and he mentioned both.
yeah.
I would think that, there'd be a pretty high level of confidence with Yoakum inside 40 yards or 35
Pete,
yards.
Pete, you have something on this? I know that last August you did. Did you ever get an update this training camp on Yoakum? Because I know last August he was not having a good camp. But this is a year. This is 15 months ago. Pete and I talked to somebody about this.
Yeah, no, I think that I was told that hey, Notre Dame has a real kicker problem. And that was when Yoakum was sort of the lead guy. And that may have been, hey, we're trying to have Yoakum do everything we would want a scholarship kicker to do, and maybe he's
Right.
just not capable of doing that. He was going to Dartmouth before he flipped and walked on at Notre Dame instead. So if you look at Yoakum, you're like, you know what? Let's just subtract 10 yard or add 10 yards to four down territory.
Yeah,
So
that's
Yeah.
maybe it's the 45 to the 30 instead of the 35, or maybe giving it down to the 25, probably the 25. Um, that's fine. Like I think that's a pretty moderate adjustment to make. Because I think that like Yoakum is a capable kicker, just you have to you put him in a position to
Right.
have success.
They didn't want
And
to, Notre Dame goes on fourth down. I mean,
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman wants to go on
Yeah.
fourth down as it is. JB, I'm sorry for cutting you off there, but I did want to say that when we talk about Notre Dame in the red zone, the flip side, it's a great, the game within the game is Georgia Tech's what is it, fourth down offense against Notre Dame's fourth down defense. They're both really, really highly ranked. So there will be some moments in there. Georgia Tech goes for it a lot. Opponents go for fourth down a lot against Notre Dame because they have to many times. So that'll be an interesting matchup. JB?
yeah, I was just going to say a benefit I think for the Notre Dame collectively and Yoakum individually, it's a dome, so there's no weather conditions to worry about if you're going to have to
No.
deploy your backup place kicker. I think that's significant. I think Notre Dame catches a break that Georgia Tech wants to play a home game every year inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I think that this could be a much different vibe for the Irish if this was a 7 o'clock kickoff on the ACC network inside Bobby Dodd Stadium. So I think both of those factors aid Notre Dame from the place kicking specific and from an overall standpoint.
So we had as I said, we had a chance to talk to Marcus Freeman for a bit. Um, he was asked about, I think we have a question in the second segment, but I want to go ahead and address this right now. Jason Onye, his status. It doesn't sound like Jason Onye is going to be back anytime soon to the program. JB?
No, I don't get any indication that Onyé will be back anytime soon. I certainly don't expect him back this weekend. Marcus was pretty vague about saying his status hadn't changed. Well, he's not on the injury report, but he was not on the practice field this week. I was told, didn't see him Tuesday with my own eyes as we went for interviews, and so I don't think there's much optimism right now while Jason deals with some personal issues that he'll be back to the team in the relatively near future.
We heard some really great things from first from El Golden Tuesday about the return of Gabe Rubio. What was the expression he used about what was that,
Rolling
Tim?
bucket of nails out there.
Oh my God.
It's a great.
Like
It's a great.
I've never heard that. That's just such an outstanding compliment. And then Marcus Freeman, talked about him a little bit too. And so when you're talking about now having Jason Onye, we were thinking that Rubio would be paired with him or would be
Yeah,
an
yeah.
additional guy in there. And so they were man down and Rubio coming back. But Rubio did some good things on last Saturday. Again, stepping on the question from the second segment, how many snaps he will take. He took 21 last week. I wouldn't think that they would want to go much
25 is,
beyond that, but
yeah.
somewhere around the 25, less than 30 probably. And so he's just, we talk about Notre Dame's interior defensive line. He's just such a big body, and it looked like he came back from his injury, maybe even a bigger body than he was. But it's important that they have that anchor that you can pull off the bench when you don't have your two starters in there.
I think Pete and JB were with Bo Collins while we were talking to Mills Priester about Rubio, and Riley Mills mentioned something along the lines of like, I asked him what does he bring, and he's like, anywhere Rubio goes, there's going to be chaos because someone's going to get put on their butt, something's going to happen. Credit to him, he just goes into situations and says, okay, I'm supposed to attack the B gap. Well, that's all I'm going to do. Let's find out what happens, whoever gets in my way. And it's like,
What a great line.
that's what you want out of your reserve defensive tackle. This season a microcosm that Jason Onye is out when Gabriel Rubio comes back, because
Yeah.
we talked about them being two of the most intriguing backup pairs, or the most intriguing backup tandem you can think of. You don't know every backup tandem in college football. Georgia and Texas and Ohio State have good ones, but Rubio and Onye's seniors healthy was something we wanted to watch, and
Yeah.
it's unfortunate.
Yeah. And look, let's face it, Rubio's going to be a starter here fairly soon upon the conclusion of the season, and they're going to need him to be that constant kind of the constant that Riley Mills has been. I know Riley Mills has gotten a lot of flack along the way, but Al Golden couldn't say enough good things about
Yeah.
the way he and Cross are playing. I want to wrap up this segment. I'm not sure how much of an opportunity you guys have had a chance to see Cameron Herron, the interior offensive lineman that was committed to Iowa that Notre Dame flipped their way, and then in response to Notre Dame losing Deuce Knight, they went out and got Blake Hebert, who was verbally committed to Clemson, and that kind of caught us off guard. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see them on film. If you're not, I'm ready to chatter on about it because I did some film reviews the last couple days.
Here's what I'd
Yeah.
say about Cam Heron. Kirk Ferentz watched him, so I don't need to.
Yeah.
But you're going to want to because it's a lot of fun. It's a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
I think Notre Dame likes him as a future piece at center. They like the
Yeah,
way he plays.
yeah.
They like sort of his disposition, not maybe as big or quite as gifted as an Ashton Craig, but in that mold.
T, have you seen him?
Yes, and Pete stole the words right out of my mouth. The Iowa flip on the offensive
Yeah.
line. They it's like a Notre Dame flip on the offensive line. If you're a different school and you say, yeah, we took him away from Notre Dame, they had a in this case 3-star. If you had a 4-star tackle, he's going to Notre Dame. He's coming to us now. Oh, all right, cool. So he's saying Rudolph liked him. That's good. Let's go. This is I agree. I mean, when they flip someone at that point, there's a reason too.
I really have. I mean, I guess I pointed out there are times where he's so physical and aggressive. There are times where he just tries to muscle a guy with his upper body and maybe doesn't get quite as much knee bend as he should. But that would, of the things that he can control, that toolbox is full, man. You love his demeanor, you love his motor. No nonsense of falling on guys and he stays on his feet. He blocks. He gets the first block. He looks for a second block. He is at one time very, very physical and also extremely quick off the snap of the football. And that is both moving vertically and horizontally. You can put him on the run, um, like Notre Dame likes to do with Ashton Craig, the injured Ashton Craig. But the only question is, like he's listed at 6'3", and like I said in my review, if he's actually 6'3", he'd be listed at 6'4", because that's what high school recruiting
That's a good point.
is all about. So he's probably under 6'3". If he's 6'2", he's going to be perfectly fine as long as he can put that weight on. He's a chiseled 275. You see an interview with him, and he has a chiseled upper body, great personality. When you see an interview with him, he was asked, it was going into this senior year. They're 7-1, I believe. What do you want to do as a senior that, the guys before you did? And he said, well, I want to help the young guys because the old guys did that for me, and that's my responsibility. It was such a Notre Dame thing to say for a 17, 18-year-old kid. I really like him. Now, Blake Hebert, I think is a little bit more of a project. I think he's aptly listed as a 3-star. By the way, after Heron committed to Notre Dame, or right around that time, he went from a 3 to a 4-star with 24/7 Sports. Absolutely deserves to be a 4-star. I think
Yes.
Hebert is a 3-star right now. He's a big kid. He's got a long arm, as I like to say. He can throw the ball deep. I don't know how much velocity he has. I haven't seen really anything of him trying to fit a ball into tight windows. He's got 10 touchdowns and 5 interceptions this year. The Brunswick School truly is a pipeline for Notre Dame as he joins Ethan Long and Maddie Augustine in the class. But look, in between CJ Carr and Noah Grubbs, considering losing Deuce Knight, I think that worked out pretty well for Notre Dame. I think he has some upside, but I would list him as a 3-star quarterback right now.
Yeah, I like his frame a lot. And yeah, I think Matty Augustine was huge in that recruitment from talking to people over the course of this week. They'd had him on campus last summer. It was indicated to me, I'm not going to sit here and tell you he was on the board above Deuce Knight, but it was indicated to me very strongly that he was always a take and that they wanted to take two. That they would have always taken Deuce Knight's commitment, but they wanted him to commit last summer and it didn't go as well as they wanted when he visited, and it was a little chaotic. And then he ended up committing to Clemson. Then as the Deuce Knight thing unfolded, they got back involved, especially with their interior connections that they already had directly to him. That reopened things up. He started again looking at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's excited by him. Again, really good size, I think. It was put to me just last night, actually, that or yesterday sometime, that he's a 2 inches taller Drake May. That's the comparison that's been used on campus at Notre Dame. Obviously, that's a pretty lofty comparison, but also Drake May was a bit of a project and then really blossomed. And so you expect this guy to be someone who can come in and learn behind a CJ Carr and continue to stabilize your quarterback room and give you really good potential quarterback play for years to come. So there's a lot of excitement.
I
If
took
he is a 2 inches taller CJ, if he's a 2 inches taller Drake May, then either CJ Carr or Noah Grubbs is in trouble because that's the second pick of the draft. So that would be a nice thing. But unlike Carr and Knight, guys that could never be on campus together for more than 1 year, 1 year would have been the ideal. Carr and Herbert could be on campus together for more than 1 year. That's how I look at the recruitment.
Yeah, that's to me the biggest thing is he's somebody who knows the situation at Notre
Yes.
Dame.
Yeah,
Talking about
yeah,
Hebert,
yeah.
where he's not coming in expecting to play right away or even his second year, maybe by his third year. And that at that point, who knows? It's a million miles away
Right.
from here.
Yeah.
So you need somebody if the quarterback depth chart totally flips over this offseason, if Steve Angeli leaves, Kenny Minchie leaves, and you're like, who is our quarterback two? And you don't want to move Tyler Buckner back for some reason. Like at least you have somebody else in the room. And I think he's certainly a capable Power Five prospect that needs a lot of work, but still he's somebody that you can work with and somebody who wants to be worked on. I don't know if I've got my prepositions right, but like somebody's ready to sort of take coaching and knows the situation at Notre Dame. And that to me, that's really valuable.
I think it's really
And I'll
valuable under the circumstances. Yeah, go on, Jed.
Sorry, I would just say, and look, this is not a situation that necessarily caught Notre Dame off guard. I think that they never stopped with Deuce or anything like that. But this isn't losing Deuce Knight in September or the 1st of October, 8 weeks before signing day, and having to go out and scramble for a guy that's never been to campus, that they've never seen live, that they've never seen do all of these things. No, this is a guy they brought in. They would have taken his commitment 15 months ago. They couldn't get his commitment 15 months ago. They get it closer to the time that it matters. They get it with a chance to get him nailed down with ink in December. And I just think that's significant. And the last thing in wrapping up some of the Deuce Knight chatter is I talked to somebody who had been in contact with some of that family and some of the other commitments of this Notre Dame class's family, and it was emphasized to them that Deuce, till the end, really felt led to Notre Dame, wanted to be at Notre Dame, and just didn't have the support system down there. And Auburn obviously has a lot cooking in NIL, has a lot to offer from the standpoint of immediate playing time, and I think Deuce heard an awful lot from close by and extended family about how much easier it would be for him to go to Auburn. But I just thought it was interesting to hear from the mother of another commitment and some other people how much Deuce till the end still really wanted to be at Notre Dame, and just couldn't get away from the pool to Auburn that was within his family and beyond.
JB, the reason I took my glasses off because I wanted everybody to see how high my eyebrows were raised when you said that they think Hebert is a Drake May. That's saying an awful lot. I don't remember seeing Drake May coming out of high school, but that's saying an awful lot. So we'll see as they move forward. Looking to upgrade your wardrobe, founded by Notre Dame alum Gal Wang, you've seen ESQ's custom clothing on the player walk and all of your favorite players and coaches. With over a decade of making the best bespoke clothing available, ESQ will help you look and feel your best. From a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt or bomber jacket, or that perfect tuxedo for wedding season, check out esqclothing.com and book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention Irish Illustrated and get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. You know what's coming up? Segment two, burning up the boards.
If you're coming to a game this season, you have to check out Game Day Your Way, Notre Dame's tailgate service provider. Game Day offers everything you need, including tailgate gear, catering, and even beverage delivery right to your spot. And their Irish Express transportation from Chicago allows you to tailgate while you travel to their all-inclusive party zone in South Bend. Let Game Day deal with all the hassle so you can focus on the fun. For tailgates, tickets, transportation, and more, visit GameDayYourWay.com.
Welcome back to segment 2, Burning Up the Boards. Our first question is from Bajis, and if I butcher that, I'm sorry. At what point does this defense hit its breaking point pertaining to injuries?
It's a good question. It's a legitimate question with guys falling every week. At defensive tackle, if you lose Cross or Mills,
And Anya's out.
and
Anya's
Anya's
out.
and Onye's out, and Rubio probably isn't ready. He isn't ready to take 50 snaps. I would say that'd be a breaking point. You got a little bit of leeway at linebacker, not much at corner. I guess if one of the starting, I don't want to speak it into existence, but if one of the starting corners going into this weekend, now you're dipping down to Carson Hobbs, although you do have the options with Clark and Hurd at corner. But I think as soon as you start taking away from that wall there at defensive tackle, now the returns are really diminishing.
I would just say I think they're already there as it pertains to December.
I
Like
agree.
I think they can actually make it through. Probably maybe like if Christian Gray had a high ankle sprain in the first quarter against Georgia Tech, I think they actually would probably be okay. I think they could take a few more hits. Not wishing that that happens, but I do think they've already crossed a line relative to the playoff and competing in the playoff that they're not going to come back from.
Yeah, specific to the interior of the line, I completely agree. They're there. They can't afford any more. It's hard to stress how much they need to just try to get through these next 2 weeks as healthy as possible, get that next buy-in, and then prepare for the closing stretch of November. But they've lost so much that I don't think they can lose anyone else to a season-ending injury on that side of the ball.
Oh, yeah, I was on my old favorite Sports South radio show here in Atlanta yesterday, and I mentioned they hit that point, Pete, just what you said. If this were once the playoff comes around, Benjamin Morrison, Jordan Botelho, Boubacar Traore, Ashton Craig, they've reached that point. However, I totally agree they can make it through right now. Cross or Mills would really test it. No one has said Xavier Watts. That would be a very big deal to me. Everything he does back there, and he is just gets better every week. I looked this up super fast so I wouldn't miss it. They reached the breaking point in late November of 2015. They were not as deep of a team, but they were as easily as talented the first 22. If you remember 2015. They lost starting nose tackle Jerron Jones. They lost Equiminius St. Brown. They lost starting tight end Durham Smythe, starting running back Torian Folston, starting quarterback Malik Zaire, backup running back CJ Procise, and what do you want to call him? Dime linebacker Drew Tranquil. They were still fighting through and beating teams that were ranked like Temple and USC. Kavari Russell went down. You go out to Ohio State and Stanford. Even he was not there. He went down for the BC game. I think that was a wrap. There, that the Kavari Russell Benjamin Morrison thing feels similar to me. Only they're not facing Stanford with Kevin Hogan and Ohio State the rest of the way.
I actually thought Morrison reminded me of Alex Bars in
Oh yeah,
2018,
18. Yep.
where you're just like, okay, they can get through the rest of the season, but when you face the final boss in the playoff, like you're not going to be able to hold up. And then that final boss turns out to be Clemson with like Christian
Yes.
Wilkins. And like, I don't think, did Dexter Lawrence even play in that
He
game?
didn't even play in the game.
They
Yeah.
had that freaky defensive end that got drafted by the Rangers who I can't even remember now, but like, just like, well, this is sort of the end of the line. And unfortunately, it's like, that's what I mean. There are many things that suck about what's happened to the defense, but I really feel like this was like a perfect defense
Yeah.
at full strength, and we barely got to see it at all. And it just sucks.
And Traore
Clearing
was
barrel,
getting
I think.
so good like that.
Yes,
He skipped a
he
year of
was.
development.
That was the thing. Like, oh, I don't know if they're gonna be able to have a one-on-one pass rusher. That's the nit we're gonna pick here. They're like, holy crap, this guy's incredible.
Yeah.
And that is
Very unfortunate. We move on to Ever 2XL. Based strictly on their high school film and your thoughts on them coming out of high school, how would you rank Notre Dame's QB prospects, Steve Angeli, Kenny Minchie, CJ Carr, and Blake Hebert? 1 through 4 coming out of high school.
Go ahead, guys.
Carr's number one for everybody. We just
Yep.
move on to two
Char's
through
number
Yep.
one
four.
for everyone. Yep.
Carr, Minchie,
Yep.
Hebert, and Jelly.
I agree with JB. I underrated Steve Angeli coming out of high school for the player he's becoming in college. I was
Yeah.
wrong about Steve Angeli. I had him really low in that class, and he is not really low.
I agree with all that. That's my ranking too.
Yeah, I would too. But of course, Angeli has become serviceable and could win games for Notre Dame. I don't think that there's any doubt about that. But I look at Hebert's strength now and Angeli's strength coming out of high school, and there's really no comparison. I mean, Angeli,
I think we all had Angeli fourth coming out of high school, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, physical strength was not a is not a Steve Angeli, well, strength.
Do you have a recent example to say?
John pointed one out from last week. I can't
Oh, it was
remember what
you,
it was
It
though.
was you, JB.
Well, let's just say that Steve Angeli looking to do the Hercules lift for Aeneas Williams in the end zone required a little bit of assistance from his teammates,
If that's not in, I have 95 things to say. Like I don't even know what O'Malley's doing.
but if if Post Malone and Morgan Wallace have taught us anything, it's that teamwork makes the dream work.
We have a question from CMU Pens fan. Is Mitchell Evans' lack of attention in the Stanford game part of strategy, part of recovery, or something else? Do you see his use going up over the next few weeks?
It was part of strategy. We talked to Mike Denbrock about it, or at least Mike Denbrock wanted to stick up for his player. He mentioned that there was some length they wanted to deal with in the running game, Notre Dame's running game against Stanford's defensive edges. You needed Mitchell Evans there. He said Mitchell Evans had his best day as a blocker this season. Didn't say best day ever because he was better as a healthy blocker last year. He mentioned that Evans was supposed to be involved a little bit, and then he actually made a joke at Leonard's expense, which, Riley Leonard's playing better when Mike Denbrock can say this. He's like, actually, Evans was supposed to be targeted a few times, but I don't make the decision on who to throw the ball to. So that means he thinks Riley Leonard's playing better. That's good news too.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, when all the speculation we had about whether Evans would be ready for the start of the season and, when would he be up to speed? And I think we've seen flashes, but he certainly,
And not even
and
close.
yeah, I mean, he hasn't been able to put anything together consistently. And that's not all on him. I mean, that's tied to as Mike Denbrock said, the decision making by the quarterback. And,
He's still
I
not
don't
a year
know.
out. Tim, he's still not a year out
Yeah, I
of his
know.
injury. Think
No,
about
I
that.
know. I know. The good thing is that you have some other guys they were able to utilize Eli Raridan for a touchdown. Cooper Flanagan, who we were a little bit surprised played last week, did some really good things in a blocking game that I noted in Monday's tail of the tape. They've got a deep group there that they can rely upon. I one of my radio show in Fort Wayne, I had Mitchell Evans as the pick the click last week, and he didn't even get targeted. So he clicked as a blocker, but and you want to get you got all these whiteouts that you think you can do good things with, and they got more involved last week as well. So, you've got a bunch of targets, including the tight ends. It sure would be great to see Mitchell Evans back up to what we saw last year. I'm not sure it's going to happen at any point this season.
No, but I still think he's fully dependable. I still think they have tremendous belief in him, and I still think he'll be a difference maker in the game on this back half of the season.
Yeah,
Maybe it'll happen December 21st. That would be a good time for Mitchell
that
Evans
would be
to
a
break
great
out.
I
time
mean,
for it.
maybe it happens in LA. We just saw this week that USC had one of its top linebackers elect to redshirt the rest of the season. So when you start seeing stuff like that, to me, I immediately thought that's one more opportunity that Mitchell Evans may be a
Yeah,
difference maker in that specific game.
Yeah,
that's
is
Eric.
USC
That's
susceptible
Eric.
to tight ends? They cover the tight end pretty well or no?
That was Eric Gentry. He's a good football player. He's long. He's somebody that you have to account for. I was surprised to hear that, but that may be the chipping away of the foundation here as USC fell for a third time.
From Toledo, Tony, what are your thoughts on Will Black, James Flanagan, and Jadon Blair moving up in the 24/7 sports rankings and the precipitous dip of Dallas Golden from 93 to 161, Mark Zachary 61 to 175? How about Heron and Antavius Richardson moving up to 4 stars?
Yeah, I mean, I think Heron deserves the 4 stars. I maybe don't feel quite as strongly about Richardson moving up to 4 star, but that's a 4 star athlete player. I kind of like him. I like him a little bit more on defense just because um, I mean, I think that position is more natural to him. He's got a lot to learn as a wide receiver, and as we've seen time and time again, guys that come in playing receiver on the collegiate level is a lot different than it is playing on high school level. But Will Black moving up, he moved up quite a bit. He's in the top 75, I believe. James Flanagan absolutely deserved to move up. Jadon Blair has great length and I think deserved to move up. I really don't understand Mark Zachary dropping 114 spots. And I mean, it's a reflection of two things. It's certainly a bunch of other people, but like that he's competing against in the top 200. But man, I mean, he's been good. He's been really good this year, and Dallas Golden has as well. I'm not sure what's involved there. I spend like less than a second thinking about stuff like that. I don't understand it. If you want to criticize 24/7, I wouldn't deny it. I don't understand it, but those two guys are good football players. They're going to be helping Notre Dame sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I
I
think just knowing where this Notre Dame staff valued Will Black, I think he's been underrated for a long time. And so I think that he was due for a significant jump and absolutely deserves to be inside the top 100, or I think he landed at number 70 in this batch. Equally baffled by Mark Zachary. Like, I love his game. I love what he does. I love his intelligence on the field in addition to his football ability. So, I understand that it's a competition and you can only have so many slots. And kudos to 247 for not tying like five guys all at the 110 spot or something like that to try and keep the peace. But as much as I understand and believe Will Black was long overdue to shoot up the charts like that, I'm very baffled by Mark Zachary specifically plummeting like that.
I think Zachary, Golden, Flanagan, and Black are the top four guys in the class.
Yeah.
If you wanted to argue for one order versus another, that's fine. But I don't think you could argue for anybody else being in the top four other than those four guys.
Yeah, and I think Blair falls right in after that group, if not,
Blair, I'm like, I don't know. I'm lukewarm on him.
okay, fair enough.
So like long guy, the physicality
Fair
would
enough.
like to see more from.
They're all going to be great, as you know, this time of year. So I'm not sure you guys are even looking at
Yeah,
the way it
look,
works.
the job of 24/7 and our competitors to rank these guys. I mean, you want to talk about a thankless job. It's almost like being the color analyst for Notre Dame home games. Like you can't win. You can't win. You can't win. But that's a difficult job to do. The degree of drop is what's so significant. If you dropped them 30 spots, okay, there's some other guys that are moving up. I get that. I don't understand.
You sure
Uh,
do like Flutie, Priester. That's crazy. Can't believe how much you like that guy.
I actually, I don't know if you probably haven't, Tim. My Thursday thoughts, I listed the history of
I
Notre
saw
Dame
it when I was trying to get
NBC.
in my hotel room so I could join this
Yeah,
podcast. Yeah, that was just, it was
and,
what's
and
going on.
play-by-play guys and analysts. I did not like Doug Flutie, and I no, I did not like
Oh,
Doug Flutie.
thankless
I
job,
didn't.
man. The poor
Why?
guy.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't think that he was intuitive. I didn't think he was insightful, and I didn't think he was very smart doing it.
I liked watching whatever. Wait, what's Doug Flutie? So he's a senior in '84. I liked watching 60-year-old Doug Flutie at the time, 58-year-old Doug Flutie throw 55-yard darts pregame to people in the end zone. That's what I liked about Doug Flutie as an announcer. That was fun. In
I'll
like
tell
a
you what,
suit and tie.
I'll tell you what I liked watching about Doug Flutie is that right after we'd moved up here and he was doing the Notre Dame games, he had a propensity to show up at LaSalle Tavern downtown and joined the bands on Friday and Saturday nights and
Nice.
play. And he's a pretty strong musician.
There you
So
go.
I
Nice.
watched Doug Flutie in LaSalle Tavern more than once after a Notre Dame home win, tear it up with the band. I think he played some with Paul Erdman and maybe the Hipposonics or something like
Viagra
that. So
Falls. What about Viagra Falls? Was he with them? There was.
he did not. He did not play with that name of your Halloween costume, O'Malley.
Our
You
next.
know, wait, hold on. I want to look. We all love Mike Mayock, right? I mean, well, not everybody did. They thought he was too technical at
Come
times.
on. If you don't like Mike Mayock, what are you
People at
watching?
NBC didn't love Mike
That's what I
Mayock.
mean. NBC
Yeah,
didn't love him, but come on. That's
I, I thought he was great. Okay, you have to be old enough, I guess. And the criticism was always, well, he's a USC guy. I thought Pat Hayden was fun as hell. Pat Hayden had fun with it. He always had these. He was witty. He had some quips. He
he had two of the funniest lines I've ever heard. Only one I can grab now. He was talking about Cleveland Gary in Miami, the famous Cleveland Gary fumble game.
right,
Because he
right.
fumbled. I've seen it on in print. It was a fumble. Um, he said most teams throw to their fullback once every papal election, is how he said that Cleveland Gary gets used a lot. I was like, that's a really
I,
good way
I
of putting it. It's
I love Pat Hayden's demeanor doing Notre Dame football, and he was biased against Notre Dame in 4 years. I never got that. I thought he did a really nice job. Question from where are we, Tim? Phila
yep.
underscore fell. Defensively, L. Golden has been going to man coverage due to the high confidence in Morrison and Gray at cornerback. Does that change with the elevation of the two Frosh and or Clark now playing the boundary quarterback? Are there teams remaining on the schedule skilled enough at quarterback and receiver to exploit that matchup? And will being heavy man work versus college football playoff teams? Right in your wheelhouse here, Pete Sampson, is
Yeah,
what
I
we're
think
talking
these two hit
about.
it. Pete and JB hit this one.
Yeah, it probably won't. Notre Dame plays man, I think about 52, 53% of the time, which is second in the country in terms of the percentage of that. Um, I was surprised that that was number two, but people play zone, and I think that you're gonna have to mix it up once you get to that level of wide receiver. But that's you're not running into that against Georgia Tech, Navy, Florida State, Virginia, Army, maybe USC. But once you get to the CFP, if you get there, then you're gonna have to change some things up.
I completely agree with Pete, and I'll again reiterate how much that Georgia Tech is a screen team. And I think maybe Georgia Tech is the number one screen offense in college football right now. At like 30% of their throw game is the screen game. But no, Notre Dame is who it is. Notre Dame, not to a detrimental point of stubbornness, like you can contend that we saw in the second half of the Northern Illinois game. But defensively, Notre Dame is who it is. It has its fundamental tenets, its beliefs. Marcus Freeman and Al Golden especially believe in that man defense. They're willing to live with the occasional blip in it. And agreeing with Pete, I don't think maybe Virginia, if that game was at Virginia, just because Virginia's having a little bit of a bounce back season, maybe, but I don't see anyone with the personnel to bother Notre Dame playing man defense enough to make them completely shift out of it, other than potentially if things go awry early against USC. I'm also repeatedly on the record on this podcast week after week of saying I think USC is completely teetering on the brink. I believe they'll go cross country this weekend and handle a Maryland team that has dropped precipitously. But if something happens and USC doesn't win that game, they're done. They're completely toasted. Their season's over now. They can't make the college football playoff. But if USC loses to Maryland this weekend, then forget it. I don't know. They'll be a complete shell of anything we've seen out of USC by the time that Notre Dame gets there. And then in the playoffs, here's the great news: you can't be a 1 through 4 seed. You can't get that bye. If you finish out the season 11-1, I still believe you could be the 7 or 8 seed hosting somebody, and then also, you get 3 weeks to prepare. You won't exactly know your opponent, but you're Notre Dame and you don't play a game after November 30th until either December 20th or December 21st. And we know that Al Golden is always in the laboratory cooking some things up.
And as it relates to Georgia Tech's screen game, again, getting back to Haynes King, if he's not in the game, that is such a timing. There's so
Yes.
much
Yeah.
timing involved with the screen game. Didn't we address that last week? Somebody asked about Notre Dame's screen game.
Uh,
It's difficult to be good at it. Georgia Tech is good at it with Haynes King. I'd find it hard to believe that Zach Pyron would walk into the lineup and have the timing and the chemistry and the relationship in the screen game that King does.
I'm glad you guys brought that up because this actually did go in 77 things to say today. KVA is really good against screens, and he is a freshman. Like Manti Te'o was phenomenal against right. They didn't have as many standard screens, slip screens, anything. Manti he destroyed screens. You could even when he wasn't a great player, as like before his senior year, he was amazing against it. KVA looks really good against it as a freshman. That it's such a weapon to be able to destroy those things because there's nothing more frustrating than that first missed tackle where it should be 1.5 yards and it's 8 because you have to make the first tackle. Other guys usually get blocked.
Yeah.
There's usually a block that is effective. It's that first one that blows the whole thing up, and he's doing a great job of it.
KVA
And
knows how to go through he sees through the weeds,
yeah,
right? He can see through the weeds and he sees the path to the guy with the ball.
Osbury too. I mean,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I
yeah.
love.
He's a magnet, man.
As
Those two
much
guys.
we would never get them to, and nor should they. But I'm fascinated at the job Notre Dame does from a recruiting standpoint of finding guys that aren't just physically gifted, but have really high football IQs. And you understand it immediately with a guy like Bryce Young, but just the innate understanding of the game that we see in KVA, in Osbury, that we're starting to see in Leonard Moore, that was always present in Ben Morrison. That's one of those impossible to quantify elements of recruiting that I give Notre Dame tremendous credit for.
Our next question is from Jim Bob Cooter 55. Over under, and I don't usually choose these questions, but I think it's really pertinent this week. Just to let everybody know that I don't usually choose these questions, but
Yeah, so don't even bother next time, right? That's
well, it's I think it's pertinent here because of the uptick in Riley Leonard's passing game
yes.
last week. You know why I don't include him? Because it anyway. Over under Riley Leonard passing yards 215.
Uh, it's right around there, but for the first time ever, I could actually not say under with emphatically and slamming my microphone because that
Right.
was never going to be close until last week.
Yeah, I think just slightly under,
Yeah, right there,
but I
right
think
on.
he's right at 200 yards again.
But that was in 3 quarters.
Well, that is true. That's a good point. I think they'll run a little bit better. I think Stanford really sold out on the run.
Yeah, they do. That's
Yeah,
their MO too. I'm
yeah.
not sure that Georgia Tech approaches it the same way. And again, I'm not saying that the defensive run numbers by Georgia Tech aren't legit, but I don't think that they're as puffed up as we're hearing, which was very, very similar to Stanford last week.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Okay. Over under Leonard rushing for 60 yards.
Over.
Over because I put his passing under. Mine's kind of a direct correlation here.
Okay,
Correct.
fair enough. Over under Jeremiah Love carries 12 times.
Over.
Yeah, after
Yeah,
60.
I'd say over or at it, but that would be the season high.
12 is his season high.
12 is his season high. I think 11, 11, 11,
Oh, no
10,
kidding.
and 6. I know 6. I, I know 6 for sure, but I think it's 11, 11, 11, 10, and 6.
Okay, well, I'm going to say over on that. And then over under Jeremiah Love yards rushing 65.
I'm going over, and before O'Malley answers, I'm going to add a bit of trivia. Jim Bob Cooter is a former walk-on quarterback at the University of Tennessee,
I am aware of that.
who almost went to medical school. Really, really bright guy. Almost went to medical school before getting into coaching, and now he's had a very decorated NFL career as an offensive coordinator.
And he is a very active Irish Illustrated podcast subscriber, apparently, because he sends us a lot of
Isn't
questions.
that
So good for
something?
him. I can't believe it. Yeah.
That is something.
ABC.
All right, before we get to predictions, we're going to wrap up here with a question from N.E. Davis 2. Fully healthy, who's the better quarterback? Riley Leonard or Haynes King? I think that's a sensational question.
That guy
Leonard.
usually asks bad questions.
Yeah. Wow. What a shot. Um, I think Riley Leonard fully healthy is the better quarterback.
I agree. Haynes King was the definitely more coveted, touted prospect. Again, I've referenced before, Tennessee was crestfallen when they initially didn't get him under Jeremy Pruitt, and there were others, maybe LSU or Georgia or somebody else was in the mix when he committed to Texas A&M. I fully healthy. I like Riley Leonard. Maybe some of it is the intangibles that I firmly believe Riley Leonard presents. But Riley Leonard, for all of his issues, has not had a 16 interception season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's to me that's a tipping point. Now I realize it was last year. Look, I don't know what my answer is. I love Haynes King, and I loved what Riley Leonard showed last week. But 16 interceptions, holy cow! I mean, at what point do you Haynes
I mean,
King would
especially today.
yeah, I
Nowadays,
mean, hey,
that's
well, but they
insane.
knew they knew they were going they could afford to go through growing pains. They had
Yeah,
that he
yeah.
was the guy that had to be it. Now, I like Haynes King in a Lou Holtz offense. I guarantee you he wouldn't come anywhere close to 16
Berline was
interceptions.
6.
Yeah,
He got pulled at number 6 at USC. They put him back in, thank God. The stubbornness
yeah.
went away from Mr. Holtz, but that was good.
I said it on Monday. King is a more physical runner than Riley Leonard is. Look, they're both for defenses. They're both a handful to deal with because they're run pass. King's more accurate or has been more accurate. Although here I go back to my 9.5 quarters. Riley Leonard is at 70% in the 9.5 quarters. So really good question because for me, I don't really know if I can have an answer or pick one other than the 16 interceptions from last year, but
Yeah.
that's in the past now. So I don't know. Gentlemen, Pete Sampson has moved along to the next assignment on his list. So it is you two to make your prediction.
I have
Oh,
Pete
we have
Sampson's
Pete
prediction.
Sampson's
We're gonna
pick.
let John Bryce go first in case Pete gives me a one sentence explanation I've asked for. But he has his prediction here.
All right. I'm not above crowdsourcing my picks, so I've tried to talk to a few people this week. No, it's not crowdsourcing. I'm just trying to be thorough in my approach. I just like Notre Dame in this game. There's I like Notre Dame winning, period. I like Notre Dame winning by more than one score, regardless of who plays quarterback for Georgia Tech. But if there's no Haynes King, then I think Notre Dame wins by 21 to 24 points.
Whew, whew.
I am with JB. I'm gonna go ahead and say mine first. I have Notre Dame winning 34-13, um, 34-17 with Haynes King, maybe 34-10 without Haynes King. So I'm just going 34-13. I think Notre Dame's going to absolutely handle Georgia Tech in this game. Um, and I am not jumping fully on the bandwagon. I think this is a great situation. And I said this or wrote this. JB said it today. I wrote this in May. This game was on the flats at Bobby Dodd Stadium. I would not be saying the same thing right here. This is going to be an almost home atmosphere for not a. It'll be a very neutral site atmosphere for Notre Dame where they're not dealing with Georgia Tech and all the stuff that goes with that on a true road game. Pete Sampson says if Haynes King was fully healthy, Georgia Tech would have a puncher's chance of this game, but he's not. I expect the offense to come back to earth a little bit, but the defense should travel just fine, and Sampson's score shows that 28-10.
Tim, did you hear me say the other day that Georgia Tech now considers Mercedes-Benz their home field? They will
Once,
play, yeah,
yeah,
they'll
all
play
but
at
one.
Bobby Dodd. Yeah, they'll play Bobby Dodd
Yeah.
Stadium once a year.
I consider it
So
Notre Dame's home away from home on Saturday.
yeah, that's we've talked about that. The NFL stadiums, Notre Dame's crowds show up for that, no doubt about it. So it may have a little different feel to it just because this is now considered a Georgia Tech home game. So I don't know, like ticket wise or seating wise exactly
I'm saying Notre
what.
Dame gets a hold of these tickets that they don't get a hold of
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
otherwise.
yeah,
It's much easier because Mercedes-Benz Stadium is larger than Georgia Tech Stadium, and for all of its rejuvenation under Brent Key, Georgia Tech is not a tough sellout ticket every week at home.
yeah.
That just means there's more tickets on the marketplace this week for Notre Dame. Notre Dame, as you guys know, way exponentially better than me, has a huge alumni base in Atlanta. Notre Dame
Oh
is
yeah.
hosting some events Friday night in downtown Atlanta, making this an event. So that's fine on paper that it's Georgia Tech's home game and that they're going to do it every year. I get it. It's a great recruiting tool for the Yellow Jackets to play a home game there every year. It's just not smart that it's against Notre Dame.
Yeah, we're going to try to be at the Alumni Association's gathering on Friday night. Tim, I don't know if we've talked about that, but
We have not, but I will be at Badeau tonight talking to people Notre Dame
oh,
fans. So, yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, that's
But
good.
no,
Fantastic. Great.
Buckhead, you're hurting me.
I'm very
So
close by. I just, yeah, I made my plans appropriately. I'm a veteran in the area.
You're
fantastic.
booed.
I don't I've got to say, and I'll wrap it up here. I've got to say that it's a little bit more difficult for me to be quite as optimistic as you guys are because I think Brent Key scares me. Brent Key is the upset king. He is the upset king of college football right now. But again,
Sausage King of Chicago too. He actually
as
is.
I
Yeah.
as I've said, he's the king of the upset with Haynes King as his quarterback, and it looks pretty uncertain that we're going to see him, or that it's very uncertain that he's going to be near 100%. So I'll have my prediction in the Fighting Irish preview tomorrow, and you'll see the three of us in or around Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Saturday pregame for our pregame incident analysis. Until then, Tim Priester, Tim O'Malley, John Bryce. This has been Irish Illustrated Insider.